Good evening, everybody. Yoo-hoo! It's about 6:30. Let's go. My name is Nancy Caldwell. I'm the one that started this, and hopefully we'll all learn lots tonight. I shanghaied Wally Stilton to helping me. He's going to be carrying the microphone around in one place. My husband Gary's going to be doing it on the other side when we get to questions from everybody. First of all, we're going to go over a couple different things. One, remember, as you may have seen in the buzz, I posted a note, we all have 2 ears and 1 mouth. That means listen carefully, be polite and civil to everybody. No outbursts, no nasty comments, nothing like that. We're here to get information, not to get anybody upset. Okay? Good. We don't want any nasty stuff. Then there's a couple things I want to show you. This is the forensic report that you've all heard about from Axis. Look at the size of that. All kinds of stuff in here. If somebody wants to look at it, you may, but it has to stay in my eyeball sight because this is the only copy they have at the office and has to go back first thing in the morning. But it's interesting reading what they found. The second thing that's up here, if you want to look at it, is the agreement to the annexation, the amendment to the annexation for the Hunter Group. So if you want to look at that, you're welcome to read that. Those will both be here. We're looking at the annexation for the Hunter Group, doing their for the meadow and what they're going to do with regard to money coming to us to be building something. So that's here also if you'd like to read it. Wally, where are you? You going to go over the forensic type things? Is there anything else you want to say first? Nope, you're not turned on.
I'm on. No, we're doing good cop, bad cop here. She's the good cop.
Except I told her to be civil.
Okay, but I want to emphasize that if you get up to a microphone and you start stating an opinion, I'm going to take it away from you. We're not interested in opinions. You can ask a question, you can state a fact, but my opinion is that's not what this meeting is for. This meeting is to tell you what has been going on, why and how. And it has nothing to do with the opinions of the people doing it or the opinions of our residents. Nothing. And if you start to criticize anyone or group, you will lose the microphone. You're not here to criticize. You are not here to state your opinion. Nobody here is that is involved in this is going to state their opinion. All they're going to tell you is what happened to get us to where we are. I hope that is understood because we won't let you speak. We're not here for that.
Okay. We have to acknowledge that everybody in this room wants what's best for Oakmont. We live in a beautiful place. We want to keep it that way. And we want to find out what's going on, but we don't need to attack each other. The one more piece of information on the back, whatever that thing is, that piece of furniture. On top of it is a list of articles that were in the Oakmont News at various times that Wally went back and pulled them all out. There's 3, 6, 8 different categories. If you haven't picked them up and if you missed them, these things are all online on the Oakmont website.
One correction. This year's are online. Last year's you have to go in the OVA office and look at the actual newspaper.
Okay, and I got a correction from the Oakmont News representative here tonight that the OV office category, it's probably the February 15th, not the 1st, that Wally may have left off a digit, that they did a long article about the OVA office. So if you're looking at them, that's back there. Okay, Wally, you want to start the information about the forensics?
Okay.
We're going to start with the forensic report so you know a general for all the different buildings.
These notes are courtesy of our current board member and past president Jim Kaiser. And this will tell you what happened with the forensic study. In the third quarter of 2010, a new manager was hired. And one of the tasks assigned by that board, now this is 3 years ago, was to look beneath the veneer and at the underbelly of Oakmont facilities. It's something that had been ignored for years. Just as an aside, when Patricia, the new manager, started looking into these things, we found, for instance, in the West Rec building, 4 different areas where there was a fire in the wall that we never knew about. And it went out by itself, fortunately, in these 4 areas, all as a result of, I hate to use the word incompetent, but electrical repair work by people who should not have been doing electrical repair work. And this is how we were maintaining our facilities for some years, was with our maintenance staff who were not versed in electricity or plumbing or anything, but were expected to fix these things. So as these were dug into, we found enough problems, and I'll go on with his action here. In the fourth quarter of 2010 through the first quarter of 2013, safety and structural issues were discovered and addressed throughout Oakmont facilities on an individual basis. We tried to repair what we could by bringing in licensed electricians, plumbers, et cetera, et cetera. Now, this is pretty costly. In the third quarter of 2011, manager and the president generated an informal plan to identify and address issues throughout Oakmont and began discussing the possibility of a forensic study. First quarter 2012, manager and board members attended a seminar where forensic study implementation for HOAs was presented and discussed. Second quarter of 2012, manager tasked with locating a firm to conduct a forensic study of Oakmont facilities. Third quarter of 2012, manager presented 3 firms and the board selected Axis. They had HOA experience, excellent references, and made the best all-around presentation to the manager. Fourth quarter 2012, Axis presented the results of their forensic study. Fourth quarter to present, demand by residents of Oakmont to conduct a seismic study of the West Rec. We're still awaiting results from that study, and we expect them sometime middle or end of next week. And here is, that takes us through why and what and when. And here is Jim's final comments. Members of Oakmont should not lose sight of the results of the Axis forensic study. They presented a number of items that should be addressed for the safety of members and maintenance of the facility. They did not report that any facility needed to be demolished and rebuilt because of seismic concerns. This study did not address seismic issues at all. They did suggest, however, that if Oakmont was going to address all the material concerns in the report, that it may be in Oakmont's interest to replace the facility with a new one. The basis for this was the amount of money that would be needed to address the identified concerns. The amount was large enough to consider replacing the West Rec building instead of addressing the concerns in a piecemeal fashion. And when we were finished, we would still have an old building. We need to consider replacing the West facility regardless of the results of the seismic study. If the study indicates building replacements, we need to proceed. Now, I'm sorry I read that because that's an opinion. And I would have cut Jim off if he was up here saying this and I wasn't realizing what I was reading. One thing I want to point out is if those of you who have looked at the suggested plan of a putting in a locker room at the west to the left side of the pool, what you need to be aware of is the lines that are on that drawing that is in the CAC lobby at the moment. We discovered since the forensic study the problem with creek setbacks. And it would appear, and I say appear because we don't know for sure, that if we tore the west wreck down, we could not rebuild it because it's within the riparian zone. It's grandfathered in as it is. We can repair it as long as if we tear it down, we're dead. We just cannot use that site because of riparian problems. So this is another issue that has come forth in the last few months that we must look at when we think about what we're going to do where. So I need you all to keep that in mind. That is a serious issue with the state of California. And it does present difficulties, but I do have to say that we do not know for sure. There are 3 different possibilities of how far that riparian zone extends from the center of the creek. And mosquito, we're not sure which one is in force. So that's something that is being dug into as we speak. So this may give you an idea of what our volunteers go through. Come on, get away. What our volunteers go through when they're looking at these issues. There's a lot of stuff that goes on out there that our typical residents don't see, and a lot of hours that go into this stuff. And you have to remember that this is a volunteer-run community. Our manager reports to the board. Our manager does nothing without the board approval. And who's the board? You folks. When we can find people willing to run, and that's tough. I'm through with the seismic study because I'm getting thrown off. You can have the floor.
Oh, thank you. Can't go on too long about any one topic. I'm not going to go through the stuff that they found in the forensic report. There's categories of architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, and cost estimates. So if you want to take a look at this, they let you see it in the office. You can't take it out. I borrowed it under threat of I don't know what if it disappears. So please do not take it. But you're welcome to look at it up here tonight, and you can stop in the office and see it at any time. Okay, we're going to start. The next topic will be the potential new OVA office that potentially will be out here on the green. And Bob Giddings is going to be nicely, that's gracious, right in my eye. Bob is going to tell us some of the history of all that's gone on, or some of, at least, of what's gone on. And then we'll go from there. Thanks.
First thing I'd like to do is confess to you that I had no idea that there would be a crowd this size here. If I had known that, I would have had a couple of glasses of wine before I came. I would have dressed differently also, and I would have eaten dinner. But first, Nancy, thank you for putting this together. I've always, and I think most of us agree, I'm going to give an opinion, that residents aren't required to attend meetings. Volunteers that are elected or serve on committees are required to attend certain meetings. And those people usually have the information first, or at least can see what direction certain topics are going in. So I applaud Nancy and this fly for drawing you all here, because this is an opportunity to spread more information and hopefully facts. And please shut me up if I start expressing opinions. I don't know if Harriet Paulk is here tonight. There you are. Harriet, the first thing I want to do, I got into the buzz, I wrote to Hugh Helm and said, would you put this in the buzz? And I mentioned Harriet in my little piece, and I misspelled her last name. I blame it on spell check, but it was probably my fault. So I wrote her to apologize that I misspelled Harriet. I had two T's, it's one T. So I just wanted to get that out of the way first too. Regarding the building, we partly came here to talk about, and I'm going to refer to it as the CBC. The CAC is what we have now. The CBC is an acronym for Community and Business Center, meaning that both the community and our administrative staff will be using that, and it was designed for use for both. I think it would be good at this time to mention, am I on a time limit, Nancy? 5 more minutes or so? Okay. Are the estimated costs that are now before us regarding that CBC? These come after a serious amount of work by the architects in preliminary designing and drawings, and their interviews with the administrative staff, and look at the site. And so I thought I'd mention these just for your information. The building itself is estimated to cost $730,000. There's a thing called design contingencies, $147,000. Insurance, $10,000. Profit, $58,000. Soft costs, $189,000, for a total of $1,133,000. Now, I am not the expert on this, so I can't answer questions about the total amount of goods which are consumed under either profits or soft costs or design contingencies. I just wanted to let you know how that $1,133,000 is broken down. I can also say regarding that, and you've probably read it in the Buzz or in the paper, that the developer of the orchard from July 1st, that's the benchmark I'm using, from July 1st on, still had a number of homes to build, so the orchard will be built out and sold. When escrow closes on those final homes, he will have contributed through those sales impact fees totaling $391,000. That's from the orchard. The same developer is developing the meadows. The developer is the Hunter Group. The Hunter Group acquired the rights to develop the meadows from Clem Carinelli. As you know, Carinelli and his development and construction went belly up, and that's when the Hunter Group acquired that. The Hunter Group assumed the contract that Carinelli had with Oakmont, the agreement, and that was to pay us all impact fees up front, not when the house was sold like in the orchard, but up front. That was about, in today's dollars, based upon cost of inflation since that time, about $540,000. The Hunter Group came to us and said they can't do that. They alleged that they couldn't develop it if they had to go to a bank and include in the construction loan $540,000 for impact fees at the beginning. And they said, can we find some way to work around this? And the OVA board asked a committee, and that committee was the OCDC, which interacts with developers or situations outside of Oakmont, not within Oakmont. And after months of sitting down with the Hunter Group's representatives, we came to this suggestion and the board approved it. And that is, instead, you may, for a period of time, if you so choose, build us a building of our choice that would be equal to or greater than $540,000 or less than. But you could build the building instead of paying us cash. And they thought about that for a while. We drew up the amendment to the contract, and our attorney put it in words, and it was much more complicated than Hunter wanted, but he eventually signed on. And so that's where we are today. They have, from the time we present plans to them, construction plans, to for 30 days after they get those construction plans to decide whether they're going to build it or they're going to pay us the money. Because if they don't build it, they're going to pay the money up front, just as before. It goes back to the original agreement. So I bring that up in big parentheses to suggest to you and remind you that we have, as I mentioned, hundreds of thousands of dollars coming from the rest of the homes as they close escrow in the orchard, and $540,000 through this agreement and the amendment to the agreement from the Hunter Group, which pays for almost the entire CBC except for maybe $200,000 and change. That change, I suggested in an article, comes from the Asset Replacement Fund. Again, as of July 1st, was about $1.4 million. I say the Asset Replacement Fund because the CBC, when constructed, will replace the cabana, the pool pump room, the janitorial supply room, the emergency preparedness shack that has supplies in case of an emergency, and one other room I can't remember right now. The transformer will be probably on the street, but it's what they call switchgear. Power coming from the transformer goes to the switchgear and it gets distributed to all the buildings in this area. The CAC, Burger, and the maintenance shed, and the CBC, if and when it is built. So in that way, we get a big bang for our buck, because one wall of the CBC will also be what used to be the cabana wall that you see here now. And in discussions with the architect, we asked them to extend the roof that comes down over that wall that replaces the cabana, so the ping pong players and pool users have shade or ping pong area to play in. So what else can I say here? Maybe since I didn't have prepared remarks and I've gone over a few things, if there are questions, maybe I could answer them, and maybe in answering them, okay, it might spur my mind to other things.
We wanted to know why and by whom was a new OVA-owned building or office decided to be a priority in the first place. What's wrong with still renting?
As far as back as I can remember, I was on the board for 3 years, and I couldn't tell you the years right now, but around 2006, prior to building the CAC, and before we turned the first shovel of construction, I was off the board at that time. And then most recently, I came on for a 7-month period on the board because there was a vacancy. When I was originally on the board, we had inherited the idea that eventually we wanted to have our own office. The office at that time was over here, as you recall, in the Benson office now, and we're at the other end of the building from the Sonoma Bank. And those quarters are very tight and not too engineered for our office or the architectural committee, and the library was there too. And that was part of the reason we built the CAC, to have an office, a library, and some more room for the architectural person also. Something that was designed for us and our needs, our business needs, and the library. And at that time, and I'm probably telling most of you what you already know, but because of cost considerations and parking considerations, we were told at the time we had to limit the size of the CAC, so we cut it back. And we put the library there, but we built no office. And we had to cut back on the size of the fitness area also. On my return to the board for a 7-month period, the first meeting I went to was a workshop over in the east. And at that time, I don't think the forensic study was was ordered as yet, or they were thinking about that. But they said their number one priority, reflecting and mirroring other past boards, was to get an office, a permanent office site for the OVA. And that was priority number one. And again, reflecting what past boards had said. So it's been in the on the priority list for quite some time, as far as I know.
Thank you. Can you describe the process that was used to choose the location? And I know this is complicated, but everybody wants to know, why not here, why not there, why the other place, that kind of stuff.
Nancy's doing a great job. Now I'm on comfortable ground, but because this is recent history and I was involved in this. Again, since the board had assigned a task to the OCDC, we were asked to talk to the developer, Hunter, about a site within the Meadows. The Meadows has room for 36 houses and I think 3 commercial lots. Now, I could be off, maybe there are 4, but let's say 3. I'm pretty sure there were 3. One of the 3 was right behind Oakmont Gardens and was hoped to be a assisted care living. And that was dropped by Carinelli way back when because he couldn't get anybody to run it. He'd build it, but there was nobody interested in running it in Oakmont Gardens. The people that owned it then weren't interested. Now I'm told that the Oakmont Gardens is interested in that spot, and there may be an assisted care facility there, a higher level of care than is now given at Oakmont Gardens. So that was one lot. There were 2 other lots, and they were zoned for commercial. And they're near Oakmont Drive, like the service station, or should be service station, is. And I think they might be on either side of that lot, which has nothing to do with Hunter. It's owned separately. So we sat down with the representatives from the Hunter group and talked to them, can we get an office there? Will you build us an office there? And we were reminded that there's a for sale sign out there. At first we thought they were selling the whole thing, but they were just selling the commercial lots. They don't want to develop the commercial lots. They will sell them and they'll build for anybody who wants to, but they want to sell those commercial lots. So they said that they'd be most happy to sell it to OVA for an office building. Then they started to go in how much that would cost. And that's why I mentioned in my little missive, I think it was in the Buzz, that the figures were astronomical. They truly were. It was over $1 million to develop the land. That is, put in sidewalks, parking lot, sewers, all the infrastructure you need before you build the building. So that ruled that site out, just too bloody expensive. It would probably be several $1 million. And that's an opinion, I'm sorry, but it's based upon what they were giving us for infrastructure costs. At about the same time, we learned from the Long Range Planning Committee, why aren't you looking at the beauty shop? Please look at the beauty shop. Well, this turned out to be a great idea, we thought, and it was doubly great because joining the OCDC team looking for a site was Wendy Lalonde, who is also here tonight. And I tell you, working with Wendy is a pure pleasure, so I'm glad we got to work with Long Range Planning, because I got to work with her. It's been great fun. And she took us over, she got the key from the McBride office, we went over and took a look. And a couple of us were impressed. We said, there's a lot of room here, but it's only 2,100 square feet, not the 2,400 they say it is. And it's 40 years old. And they have parking, but we'd have to expand that building to get the square footage we thought we needed. And that would erase some of those parking spots. I'll get back to that in a second. But anyway, Pat Amadeo and I went down to talk to the architects and we said, we'll take you to lunch, but come with us after lunch and take a look at this site. This was the last winter. And luckily, it wasn't raining, but it had just rained a few days before, which revealed the leaks in the roofs. But anyway, after lunch, Mitch O'Connor and Peter Stanley, the 2 architects, came with us. They got up on that island that's in the middle where the water comes down through the roof. on the granite, stood up there with their flashlights, looked around, took a look around the building, where possible expansion might be, and said, it looks like it has good bones. And we were happy they said that. There's a possibility here. And there has been rumors floating around that, well, maybe the Burger Trust, who own that building, might sell it to us for $1, or lease it to us for 99 years for some small sum or something like that. That was not to be the case. In fact, the Burger Trust is anything but generous, as we found out. So what came out of the conversation with the architects was that we'd build out from the side to give you the square footage you need. It would need a new roof. And whatever addition you put on, it would be on a separate foundation. So you'd be connecting two buildings, really. You wouldn't be expanding the other one. You just knock a wall out and you'd have a new building around one side to give you that additional square foot. They pointed out also the tiles in there were 9 by 9 inches, I think they said, which at the time that building was constructed, probably in the 60s or 70s, those size tiles usually meant asphalt was used in them. And that wasn't a preventative, it just would cost a little bit more to have them removed because you have to take certain steps where you can abate asbestos. So there was that, and John Taylor pointed out at that time, being the diligent person that he is, that to get the parking spaces we would need after losing the parking spaces due to the expansion, the lot that it's on, it's part of a larger lot that has McBride Realty, the cleaners, the travel agent, it's still there, the jewelers that used to be there, but that may still be there, I don't know. But that is all one big lot, including the beauty shop. And the beauty shop is separated by some dead plants and a planter. So it had about 24 parking spots, I think. And we would lose 7 or 8 of those. And the others on that side that we would lose would be hard to get to because it would be narrow to get to. So they'd have to be diagonalized instead of straight on. So John pointed out maybe we could parcelize that larger lot and pick up parking spots on the other side of the planter where the dead plants were closer to the back of McBride. So we put together an offer after the board. Be more succinct, she said. Thank you. I'm never succinct. My apologies. That's a good advice. So with the board's consent, we sent an offer to Burger Trust, a good faith offer of $100,000, but we knew we wanted to negotiate. We didn't know what, but we couldn't because we had the fair market value. It was far above that. We had to set a good offer trust. And basically, our offer was a standstill agreement. The standstill is to say, we want to negotiate in good faith. Our first offer is this, but you don't negotiate with anybody else while you're negotiating with us. And to be succinct, the result was Vance Douglas, VP of Real Estate for Burger Trust, said at 3 times that amount, he doesn't think the board would approve it. At that time, we realized that that too was going to be too expensive. And if we built it, it would be at least as expensive as if we built something on our own property. And it wouldn't be engineered for our needs specifically. So the next step, we went out to this piece of land out here at the corner. And to be succinct, that fell through too, due to engineering problems, the grade, possible setback issues because it's long and narrow, and more expensive than developing a much more gradually graded area as I'll call it the greensward. A lot of people have called it that. And by process of elimination, there weren't any other spots that we could build that would be so useful, so central, and kill so many birds with so few stones at a good price as that. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4. That was not considered one for a very, very long time until the others had been eliminated.
And out here behind wasn't going to work either where the shuffleboards and stuff are. Right? The shuffle, some people have asked, how about out here where the putting green, shuffleboard, all that kind of stuff are?
Again, staying away from an opinion, the lot there is owned by Benson, and he allows some maintenance, parking there, maintenance facilities. But we have no easement there in writing. We don't own that lot, the parking lot, pardon me. And I think that's all I should say on that, other than, because the rest is opinion. Yeah.
Wally, you wanted to pipe in here?
Yeah, I wanted to add one thing that I think Bob passed over, and that is the fact that the $540,000 we would get in construction costs from the Hunter Group do not include any overhead or profit. So if you added a construction company's overhead and profit into building the exact same thing, we would be paying considerably more money. So we're saving that in addition by using those funds to construct something. So if you stop and think about that, what they add for overhead and profit onto the cost of the building, we do not pay that. That's in the contract. Our architect monitors that very closely to make sure that they are not putting in. So we would be getting labor and materials at the contractor's cost, nothing added to it. And that's a lot of money we would be saving over building it ourselves.
Thank you. If for some reason it's decided not to build a building now, I don't know why not, but if they decide that, can the funds be banked for future uses, I was asked? As far as I know, the answer is no.
If after presenting them construction grade plans and giving them 30 days, if they say they won't build it, well, let me answer A first. If they don't build it, then they owe us, according to the contract, that reverts back to the $540,000 they owe to pay us. Again, that would be an opinion and speculation on my part, and I'm neither on the board now nor do I have the legal mind or background to answer that.
Just to follow up on what Wally said, that there's no overhead, administrative overhead, or developer profit in the construction costs. And there's a list here of the actual things that are included in their actual costs of things, not pie in the sky numbers that they plucked out somewhere. And a question, and I'm not sure who knows the answer to this, maybe it'll be John. Was Archaeologics chosen initially, because they're the ones that have been drawing the plans, had chosen initially to do the whole project, and then what committee did choose them when there's supposed to be 3 contenders for a job? John, do you know? Gary, can you give me mine?
They were selected by a previous board, and I wasn't part of that decision.
He said they were selected by a previous board and he was not a part of that decision. Does anybody know how Archaeologic got chosen? Sue, were you around then?
I wasn't on the subcommittee that,
If you want an opinion, I can offer that, but I can't give you that.
Richard? Gary? No, his name's Gary.
I believe Mrs. Amadeo explained it in an email to Mr. Herman, how it came about, that they had, in the beginning, when they built the central facility, that they had 3 bidders, or 4 even, and it was like terrible because, and they found out that Archaeologic was the most honest, and gave them a good deal. And they don't want to go through doing all the bidding again, because it's not worth it to them if they did a good job there. I just tell you what's said and that's that.
Did you all hear that? No. That Archaeologics did a good job on the CAC. It had been a difficult procedure when they did it the first time, And so they went ahead and used them again for this program. Now, John, you probably do know the answer. What's the status of the design and plans right now? Where are they? Are they drawing drawings? Yes.
I'd like to offer something on the last question, if I may, about how was archaeological.
Wait a minute.
Wait for the mic.
We're not really getting into questions a whole lot right now, but go ahead.
Well, isn't this, I was told this is a meeting for expressing opinions and questions. Well, I'll just state something briefly, which I do not know. But I go to the pools, and the pools have a lot of people expressing what they know and what they believe. And it's believed that archaeologics is almost grandfathered in with certain people on committees, refer them. And I've heard mentioned many times that firm and the procedure for budgeting does not seek the opinions of Oakmonters. And many Oakmonters feel that things are going in a direction that does not seek their opinion at all.
I'm sorry.
And especially with
I'm
archaeologics.
sorry, you're off the topic right now. I'm sorry.
Off the topic is good on occasion.
That's true. But right now, let's go on to something else.
Nancy, I just have some information that might be interesting. I'm Hugh Hellman. I posted some email on Nextdoor and Buzz from Bob Giddings and from Pat Amadeo. One of Pat Amadeo's emails that I posted on those sites that you can look at traces the committee process by which they ultimately selected Archaeologics. They had looked at 20 or more different firms. They interviewed many of them. They weeded them out, and they finally settled on this after a long process. So I suggest that you look at those emails from Pat Amadeo if you want to know how Archaeologics came to be where it's at today.
And it is a very detailed comment, that I did read them.
And I might add to that, I was on the original committee 6-7 years ago that interviewed almost 24 architects locally, narrowed it down to 7, then narrowed that down to 3, and Archaeologic was the outfit that the board chose at that time. Now, they have also done some other work in Oakmont. They did some work in the East Rec. They know our community. They know what we need, what we like, how we like to have it. Now, just to give you an idea, a few minutes ago, mentioned the fact that 2 of the architects from Archaeologic were over at the beauty parlor. If you could imagine what that would have cost if it was a different architect who would be charging us $300 an hour per person to go over and do that. Archaeologic does it basically almost free because they are our consultant. And the reason for this is that they understand us. We cannot find plans for any of our old buildings. They've just plain disappeared. With Archaeologic, they will be storing all of our working drawings, all of our as-built. We will know where they are. They know where to put their finger on anything we need to know. Where is there an electrical line in such and such a building?
Wally, I'm not sure that's been chosen as yet.
Pardon?
They have not been chosen as the reference.
Well, no, I'm just saying this is why we look at them, because any other architect would have to come back in and spend weeks and weeks getting up to speed. Archaeologic spent many hours 6 years ago with our office staff as to what we needed in an office. So they didn't have to do all that this time. They already knew it.
John,
So there was very little done, and this is why Archaeologic is the logical choice for this, because they know us.
John Taylor, do you want to add any comment to that?
I apologize.
Architect?
No, I was going to help with your other question.
But I thought you might have a comment about like Malcolm is the attorney, the reference architect. Because it hasn't really been chosen as far as I know, as yet.
It absolutely has not.
It has not been chosen, so that's just Wally's comments. Oh. Yeah, we were going to go through each one of the areas, places, and then ask questions. But it makes sense, I guess, to ask some questions right now per building.
Yeah, I've got a question. You started out by saying that everybody here has got Oakmont's
hopefully best interest.
Yeah, best interest at heart. And you also said that the residents have a say in this. So my question is, there's this box where everybody's putting in these little suggestions. I'd like to know if anybody knows what the consensus is of these suggestions and if anything can be done because of these suggestions. Anybody know what the consensus is?
John?
Don Green is a member of the four-person coordination team that is working on the detailed design of this building, and so he's taken on the task of tallying all of the questions in the question box. The process is not complete, but the interim report that I received from him said there had been over 250 comments, and more than 200 of those were related to fitness center observations about feeling that the initial proposed location was too close to the glass windows that that fitness aficionados look out of in the, I guess you call it the stretch and balance area or the free weights area. And so I have had a report from that team that as part of their detailed design review process, they have asked the architects to look at modifications of the design that will move it additionally 10 feet farther from those windows, creating a space that's 33 feet and 4 inches wide, which is actually 2 feet wider than the space between the courtyard of the existing central activities building. So if you're in the fitness center in the central activities building and you're looking across toward the computer learning center, that space is 31 feet wide. And so I understand that the detail design people are looking not only at that, but they're also looking at, with the movement of that building, changing the location for the entrance to the pool area so that it doesn't conflict with the new design of the central plaza outside the entrance to the Berger Auditorium. So that the pool would have an entrance of its own near the activity center, and so all the parking related to the pool is their concept, and all the traffic related to the pool would go in now what is called the exit to the pool, and a new exit location would be selected. In addition, I think one of the detail design aspects that they're working on is to improve the amount of glass exposure on the eastern side of this building. And at the last board meeting, we approved a small contract with the landscape architect to come in and give us not only a foundation design around the western and northern sides of the proposed new building, but also to give us a quite elaborate landscape design so that the view from the fitness center through those pretty windows would not be of the greensward or Annandale, but it would be an attractive view of a landscaped area, not a blank wall of a building. But I would hasten to say that one of the things that Oakmont has traditionally done with projects like this, and this is what they did with the Central Activity Center, was gather all the input that we can give the architects about what we think Oakmont needs and ask them to come up with a conceptual design that meets that. And after we look at that conceptual design, then we get as much resident input as we can, massaged by a designated team of people to see how that can be further improved. Sometimes, in the case of the Central Activity Center, it had to be smaller because the price was too big to include a 3,000 square foot business office. I think we're going to find that the detailed design work for the proposed CVC is going to accomplish that same objective. But it remains to be seen. And the architects will not be proceeding with any construction drawings until we get that detailed design, because they have to complete the detailed design in order to submit an application to the city for a design review approval, a process that's likely to take 2 to 3 months on the part of the city reviewing what we come up with. So there's still a lot to be done, And the next step is for the detail design people to finish their recommendations based on the kind of input that they've gotten from these 250 question boxes.
Those kinds of questions are exactly why I wanted this meeting to occur tonight. Virginia, is that you back there?
Yeah, that's me back here.
I appreciate what Wally and John have been talking about, but the basic question has yet to be answered. Why are we getting a new building? We have a lot of square footage already there, and just off the top, without having to do anything but math, at $40,000 a year, which is what I believe what the lease is, with the impact, with the money coming in at 1.13, that would pay 28 and a half years of rent over there. 28 and a half years. I have yet to hear anybody on the board say, except that, well, the other boards wanted it, so we just kept going with it. I don't know why we need this building to begin with.
Harriet? Gary? Tell it microphone.
Did somebody answer why we need the new building?
Why don't we, are you going to ask a different question? Or are you
I'll give you a quick answer. Do you want to pay rent forever?
Yeah, but instead of 1.13 million, I'll take
In 5 years, we're ahead of the game.
No, we're not, Wally. We still have
We are.
reserves to put in, we still have maintenance. It is not, that is not the final figure. No, not true.
Virginia, may I ask Virginia?
Yeah.
Do I need a microphone? Yes. Do you have a way of figuring?
Here's Sue.
Virginia, I've read your questions on the buzz, and I think they're good questions. But I'm asking you, do you as a realtor have some kind of formula where you can calculate, estimate, crystal ball what rent will be in 5 years? Because I want to say that the lease we are about to opt out of in another year and a half, 2 years, we got that rent at a bargain because we've been through the worst recession that the whole country's been through since the Great Depression. We got it at a bargain. I don't think we can count on that being the rent for the next years out.
Question, I've been here for a year, and I'm listening to all this. I was on a committee for a little while, and I'd just like to know how much people have projected homeowners' dues will increase over the next 5 to 7 years.
John, do you have any idea? Didn't mean to put you on the spot like this for everything.
The answer is no, I can't project what it'll be in 5 to 7 years, but I can give you a couple of facts. I have just received from the Finance Committee their recommendation for 2014. It's a 50-cent dues increase. I think that's less than it ought to be, but that's the way their numbers are crunched for 2014. In 2016, I believe it's July or August, dues for the vast majority of Oakmont residents will go down by something on the order of $12 because of what that vast majority who didn't pay an upfront lump sum are paying in monthly dues to pay off the loan on the CAC. Oakmont has done a very good financial planning job over the years. Bob Giddings summarized what he had to talk about in terms of how this particular proposed building might be funded. But from my position on the board, those numbers, when you add it to the present capital improvement fund we have, is $2,111,000 to do the kind of capital improvement work that we need. That's over and above $1,445,000 that we have in asset replacement funds. We got plenty of places to spend this, but we are well financed. And so my guess, now I'm in the opinion area, is that there will not be any significant dues increase due to the construction of this building There may be a dues increase because of things that we decide to do better. Right now, we're having a videotape of this program. Through the volunteer services that came from the Communications Committee and from Gary Pickering and from Dutch Licklider, using equipment that they own, we're arranging to have this kind of regular board meeting broadcast go on a regular basis for the piddling sum of about $3,500 a year. If we were not doing it substantially on a volunteer basis, we'd be paying $10,000 a year just for that kind. But video is in our future. Online activities are in our future. And we need to look forward to that.
Do we have enough money for the West? If we put this building up, is there enough money to do what we need to do to get the West up to par?
I can only offer you opinion until I get to see the seismic report. But if the seismic report comes in the way Jim Cotton and Herman Hess believe it will from their walking around with the seismic engineer, we will have sufficient money to repair a structurally safe building. If they find it structurally unsafe, we've got a whole new deck of cards that we have to take a look at.
And should we wait on building the business center till we know that?
Not only should we wouldn't be able to go ahead with it. We expect to have a seismic report on which we can build plans within the next week or so, and so the board can continue to study it. We couldn't possibly build a new CBC and start construction on it before the summer of 2014. The board couldn't approve a contract to build it before the summer of 2014.
The board made a new office building a priority in 2007.
Where's the person who's talking? Oh.
Since that time, a lot of issues have arisen with the West Rec, and starting years ago with the locker room situation. The forensic study has produced made us aware of other problems. I think that if we went ahead and let Hunter Group build something at the West Rec, I hear a lot about this swim center. I don't think there would be one person in Oakmont who would think that was an unnecessary expense. And why can't that be our first priority? Because that is what we desperately, desperately need fixed. I think at this point, the central building, the office building is a luxury that we haven't gotten to the West
yet, so hang on a minute. Bob? We're going to address the West also.
Thank you. A gentleman just stood up a little while ago and asked about projections for OVA dues. Thank you for bringing that up. For months, I've been waiting to get a microphone and a crowd in front of me regarding this. In the last year, several people, some on the board, have alleged that former OVA boards thought dues would go up as much as $3 a year.
A month.
Pardon me, a month each year. They referred to, I think, a September 2006 general meeting of the population. I know about that estimate of $3 per month per year because I gave it. And the reason I gave it is we were lining up financing for the CAC. And I gave a worst case scenario. So if anybody heard from board members recently, because they said it at meetings, it wasn't true. No previous board had forecast $3 a month increase in dues per year. No board had done that. That was a wild projection to show you a very worst case scenario. Thank you.
I just wanted to ask a question.
Okay.
We all know there's been a lot of dissension and so on, and I think the problem has been the board has asked for input, and the input from many people was, do we do a building, an office building, or whatever you want to call it, or don't we? But it seems to me it's pretty clear, and it's been pretty clear to me now for the past few meetings, that the board has definitely made a decision to go ahead with this building if everything goes okay. So all they needed to do is, if we made a decision and we're going with the board, we want your input about what to do or not to do. But first, that should have come, and should have come first and see what the opinion of the membership was. And you wouldn't have had all this dissension, but the board has made believe, or it gave the appearance that they were waiting for input from the residents about whether to do the building or not. They've made that decision, it seems to me, and it's pretty clear, and that's been the problem. That's all I'm talking about. We could have stopped a lot of dissension if it wasn't that, and we could have discussed it.
Are there any other questions about the new building potential? Mike? Gary?
One of our residents, Richard Duncan, very active in the community, put together a PowerPoint presentation. He had it on his computer, and you don't need the latest and greatest computer in which to look at it. What he did was he put the schematics showing where and how the building was going to be placed on what's currently the proposed area, but he also transported that schematic and put the building over here. We touched on that very briefly, and it seems to me that the only objection to put it over there is the fact that we don't own the parking lot. We also don't have an easement. So there's two things. Can't we negotiate for an easement? And why can't we use this parking lot here? There's not going to be more people that's going to be wish to use the building there that are currently using our buildings now. It's just a short walk from this parking lot, walk through to a building over there. It's about the same distance as it would be from there to the card room in the building over here. So I'd like to ask the question, could we look again to see if we can put it over there? Richard put many advantages in his presentation. It's very well done. I would like for anyone who wishes to see it, we've got the website where you can go on and you can send it to you. So a response, please. Could we look at that again?
Bob's going to answer that, I think.
Mike, it's a good question. I looked at Richard's presentation twice, pretty professional. And not an opinion, I'm just going to throw out some things. If we put it over there, we lose the cabana and we have to build that separately. That's a physical fact. Okay. The switchgear room still has to be built. We have to rebuild that. The pump room has to be rebuilt because the pipes go underground under the concrete to the pool and to the hot tub. My only point here is that if we built just an economic point, that's all it is, not a writing point, an economic point, we have to build two separate buildings, a new cabana with all those sheds and a pump house and the switchgear and a couple of other things, and a new cabana, plus that, and then hope for an easement. It's all built on wishes. So I just wanted to bring up those facts, that those things, it couldn't be combined with the, if it was built over by the green.
Bob, all you're getting from the building is one wall for the cabana. All the other stuff has to be built anyway. What's the difference?
It's included in the cost of building the new office building.
But is it really any different?
That plan, and I looked at it today, and Richard always does a good job. He did a good job with this. But it would add at least $500,000 to Oakmont's cost to come up with the same thing.
Who figured that out?
We would have to build.
Wait a minute.
No, that's not an opinion, that's a fact.
Where did you get that number? Wait.
Will you let me talk?
Where'd you get the number from?
The number is from the $200,000, which was the estimated cost of rebuilding the cabana. We were told by Axis when they did the initial study that to do the work we have to do to when the transformers replaced is going to cost in the neighborhood of $316,000. This is all of the underground work, the pad to move the transformer to, the switchgear room, et cetera, et cetera. There's $316,000. I personally think that's high, but that's an opinion. The total is $500,000 that we will have to do no matter what. We have to replace the cabanas.
That's there anywhere, whether the building's there or not.
But that's included in the $1.2 million cost. So you got to take that out.
Gary, did you want to say something?
As an architect, I think part of that parking lot was dedicated to the approval for those commercial buildings, so we probably can't lose some of the parking without losing the original permits against the commercial buildings.
Could be.
As a possibility.
Yeah?
I'm a little lost, and I would appreciate somebody drawing and talking about what you just said and drawing it on there so I can understand it, because I didn't get what just
Drawing or the numbers?
Make a drawing. Show me
the building.
Okay.
Harriet?
Can't hear.
No, you need the mic.
I think I was next. I want to ask a question of anyone who knows the answer. Did any of the committees or was Archeologic asked to consider this alternative space, this alternative location? The one behind the pool.
Bob, was that location back here behind the pool considered it as one of the sites that you tossed out? Or John, do you know? Yeah, that site back there. What Richard was proposing was kind of around the putting green.
The sites that have been talked about were looked at in various stages by different experts. For instance, we didn't just take Hunter Group's comments about the proposed commercial parcel that's part of their property. We didn't just take our residents committee look at the beauty parlor building. We didn't really look at these spaces here just as amateurs. We had civil engineers come and look at them relative to what the design considerations were for each of those locations, the slope, the ability to bring in the necessary utilities, the property setbacks, and so forth. Other locations, such as the far end of the parking lot near the lawn bowling green, where there's a long, narrow strip, and the area over here around the putting green. Those locations weren't looked at in that same professional degree, but they weren't looked at that way because there are other considerations that the community has. As a for instance, there's a lot of interest in this community in going along with the current development of pickleball facilities. We don't have open space for pickleball facilities without doing away with some active facility that we have now. And the estimate that the pickleball interests have for us is that they probably need 6 to 10 courts. I don't know whether that's right or wrong. That's why the board has asked the Long Range Planning Committee to look into the development interests. But we need to think of how we're going to most effectively use and continue to enjoy the open space that we've got in the community. And that's why the design that is being pursued in more detail now, or out here on a far corner of the Greensward, is trying to be located so that it retains the openness to the extent that we can possibly get it.
The meeting opened with the statement that we all have the best interests of Oakmont at heart. Well, that's clearly an individual opinion. And since this is such a contentious issue, I know it would cost money, but why can't a ballot be sent out and let's find out what this community wants?
That sounds good, but that's also, we're a large community. There are a lot of committees. There's a reason that there's committees. If you're interested in being on these committees, by all means, speak up. Come to the board meetings, come to the workshops so you know what's going on, not just read about here, there, and everywhere and hearing little bits and pieces and rumors. No, that's right. But there are so few people that participate. Okay.
May I make one comment there? 7 years ago, when it was the board of directors thought that we needed to remodel the 2 buildings that are now the one big CAC. We had the same kind of contention, and I see a lot of the same faces who said, oh, no, 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 don't spend money on that, we don't need it, etc., etc. Now, this was maybe 50 or 60 people who were very vocal. They're very vocal here tonight. But let me tell you that an ad was placed in the Oakmont paper, cost $800. There was no problem getting 800 of our residents to pay $1 each to put that ad. They didn't come to meetings, they didn't speak up. Oh yeah, we're 100% in favor of that. So you folks who think because you are vocal, you represent this community completely is just not true.
I'll say it for you.
Okay. I think we could just cost $14,000, but it'd probably be worthwhile. Send out a ballot. Problem is,
Okay, we're not looking for an argument here.
No argument.
There's a woman waiting to speak here for 20 minutes.
Yes, ma'am. No, Bridget, wait a minute. Yes, ma'am. Back there in the purple shirt.
Go ahead.
I think it's on. Okay.
Yes, it's on.
I'm a retired city planner, and so development is sort of one of those things I dealt with. And I know that we have a local process for making decisions, and that any decision that we come to here has to go through the city of Santa Rosa. Excuse me. I'm from Southern California, so I'm excused. I hear a whole series of things about building costs, and except for mention of the infrastructure cost attached to the buildings, a potential building on the commercial properties that Hunter owns out further, I hear nothing about the infrastructure cost attached to this building. The one that I think of, just coming to mind immediately, is additional parking. Parking is based on square footage. If you add square footage, you're going to have to provide more parking unless this is already overparked. The fact that we do not own the parking lot, and we don't even have an easement on the parking lot down there, is likely not to sit well with the powers that be in the city, because they'll say, you could lose that parking whenever. You have no right to it.
My understanding is, John, if I'm wrong, when they move the electrical stuff, supposedly they can get more parking spaces there, and also some other spot at the end. Is that right?
There we go. Another speech from the board.
I'm sorry I haven't met you and I don't know your name, but your observations are absolutely accurate, and that's one of the issues that will come up when we present our application for a design review. We are hopeful with the analysis that has been made of the present parking lot that 2 things will give us the additional parking needed that we weren't able to get before. The first is that our present parking spaces are at a 45-degree angle. If you move it to a 60-degree angle, you gain 1 parking space for every 10 that you have now. In addition, if we relocate the electric switchgear building into the proposed new construction, we gain 5 spaces from that location. So we're hopeful that with our ability to present to the community what our present lot usage is, plus these additional spaces from re-angling and from moving the obstruction out of the parking lot, that we'll get a pass. But it's still a hurdle to get over.
Do you know what the standard is?
No, because I don't know exactly how they're going to classify the components of the building. As you know, it's an issue that involves permanent staff, and we have 6 of those. So we know they'll require 6 spaces as far as that staff is concerned. But how much they will require relative to the amount of usage of 2 activity rooms is a variable.
Well, this
And the one thing we have going for us here is that we are viewed with some trepidation by the city of Santa Rosa because of your voting power. So they are quite willing to work with us on these things. And a couple of years ago, just to give you an idea, when we were forced to reduce the size of the CAC because of parking issues, after that was built and completed, and we were talking about, well, can we get Clem Carinali to build us an office over next to the gas station on his property? An ex-city manager of Santa Rosa went to the building department and the city council at that time, and they agreed to reduce the amount of parking spaces we needed. And my guess is that they will work with us on this too. But our problem out here is we don't own the lot, so we have no parking out there to even negotiate with.
Well, you'd still be working with the one here. Virginia?
Thank you, Nancy. I do take exception to what you're saying, Wally. I think people coming here tonight are now just whining or crying and not representing the community. These are people who came in, didn't eat dinner, and feel very strongly about how this board is running this particular building. I think you might want to ask just straight out, how many people here would support the building and how many people don't want the building the way it's been presented right now. So this has gone through, is that right? This has gone through OCDC. It's a very tough committee to get onto. Very, very tough requirements, which I appreciate, and I do appreciate how well this committee has negotiated this building, but it doesn't get to the basic question is, why do we need it when we have so much commercial space right now that's available that we even have a committee trying to fill that commercial space in? So Sue, when you were asking me as a realtor, do I have a crystal ball that's going to tell us what's going to happen in 28 and a half years? I'd like to. Then you'd all be my clients, no doubt. I don't, but I do know that we have a lot of commercial space open right now. We have 2 more lots that have to be built out, and the reason they probably don't want to build it is because there's no demand for commercial right here in Oakmont. We're paying a fee of $40,000 right now. We could probably negotiate a lease with the medical building over here for at least another 10 years, 5-year, with another option for renewal. I do know those. So I just wonder, why are we putting $1 million plus into building what we already have that we can get for $40,000?
Unfortunately, I don't have an answer for you tonight. I think time is going by. I think we need to move on to the next building. Addressing the West Rec, that we wanted to know, since they're waiting for the seismic report, there's not a whole lot we can say now. But one question that came up was when the original plan for working on the West was just to redo the downstairs bathrooms before it got to be a grand plan and stopped and all that kind of stuff. Why was it why is it not thought about to simply redo the bathrooms at this point, assuming the reports come back okay? Is there any particular reason not to do that and forget all the other fancy stuff?
You'll have to pardon me, excuse me, but you jumped on to the West Rag when there were some very important questions asked. And I'm going backwards for a second to ask the gentleman, I don't know if it's Wally, to not accuse the opinions expressed in this forum as crackpot ideas that are unfounded. Any community, any community is based on the residents and the members of the community. And I don't think a board of directors or administrators should downplay what people have to say. Secondly, I want to endorse what was said before. I believe this board is being archaic and moving ahead in directions without gathering consensus, without seeking the opinions of residents. And I don't think the topic of the meeting should change after a referendum is requested. I think this board should admit that though people may have expressed opinions, there was not an adequate search for the opinions of the residents before the plan was made for this building. And I, for one, don't want to see us going around in circles about parking spaces and where it's going to be before the issue of the opinion of this community and its residents are sought by this board. Thank you very much.
John, did you want to say something or not?
Yes, I wanted to point out that...
Wait a minute, get the mic. Where to go?
Yes, excuse me, I want to get back to basics. We started out the meeting agreeing that we would not have opinions. This gentleman has done this twice now, and I think the rules apply to everybody. That's all I've got to say.
Okay.
Rules apply to you as well, sir.
Thank you. This is the last question now. We'll move on to the West. The other stuff doesn't have as many things on it, so we can come back.
I have a question about the West. I think you mentioned earlier, can the money from the Hunter Group be used to build what we need at the West Rec?
From the statement that says alternative performance construction of office or activities building, it's one of the sections in the amendment here, and I've been told that it can be used for anything. But this amendment says association shall choose between an office building or activities building. And whether you count bathrooms as activity building or not, I suppose that would decide. You want to say anything?
The board is in the position of being able to pick any kind of a building and offer that to the developer for construction. Any building.
And keep in mind at the west, we have the creek setback problem that needs to be addressed before any decisions are made.
I guess the question will have to be answered further because the amendment does say between an office building or activities building.
It seems very simple to me. Why not just make that building half the size? I think people would pretty much go for that.
Well, the office needs a certain amount of space. Whether we need another meeting room, conference room, and so forth.
No, I mean, I saw those plans, and I don't know what you need all those little meeting rooms for. Most of the meeting rooms in the other buildings stay empty most of the time.
That is completely untrue. Completely untrue.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You go in the office and try to book a room for a once a week or twice a month. It's impossible.
Fine.
It's
Just,
impossible.
if we made the building smaller, I'm pretty sure there'd be a lot less contention. That's what the board should think about.
I can comment to you about the facts of the design, and you have to draw your own conclusion as to whether that is correct or not. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but roughly speaking, the total construction that is outlined in the drawings that you see in the CAC lobby is about 3,300 square feet. Less than 2,000 of that is for administrative office space. About 400 relates to the pool and spa equipment and the space for the new electric switchgear location. And the balance relates to multi-purpose rooms. When you talk about building a building that this association will use for 50 years or more, you have to take into consideration what our future needs may be. We had to consider whether or not we're going to continue to outsource our bookkeeping service, or whether we should bring it in-house. that's an important decision to come in the next year or so, after we're sure how we've implemented the mechanization of our OVA bookkeeping and record-keeping procedures. I don't think we would want to build a building that didn't offer us the opportunity in the future to house a bookkeeping staff in that space. If this community continues to focus on moving into the digital generation and offering video facilities and so forth, we may not for long be able to utilize volunteer talent like Dutch Licklider and Gary Pickering, and we may have to house our own video processing equipment in a building space.
But John, we also need to work on the heating, the pools falling apart, the air conditioning not working. We need to fix, so this is a first-class facility for everybody, and make it work, make our bathrooms work, make our lockers work, make our pools work, make the hot tubs continue to work, make the air conditioning work. We need to do those things before we put new stuff. Yeah. I mean, I want furniture out there that looks decent. I pay my fees. I want us as a group to address our needs so we stay a first-class facility.
Thank you. I was just trying to answer the question that the gentleman here in the front row asked about the size of the building. And so I'm just trying to explain to you that the committee that put it together and the information given to the architects was trying to urge consideration of this. It's just like the kind of thinking that we put into the CAC. If you go into room B, that's a nice meeting room. But you know that may not be perfect for a meeting room if the fitness centers continue to expand. We may need to give up a meeting room in order to meet the community's demand for fitness center facilities. And so we've got a flexibility that we hope we build in. It's just like the kind of blocking and spacing that we had done for the roof of that CAC building, and that we've proposed for this design for the CVC, so that we would be able to put solar panels on the roof at a future date without rebuilding. So yes, you could argue that we didn't need today the size building that's being proposed, but I believe we would be short-sighted if we didn't go this direction based on the kind of observations that I've suggested. That's the reason.
I'm thinking from what John has said and we've heard before, is that if the reports, the seismic reports and other kinds of considerations show that there are so many things to be done that we can't afford to build a building right now, it wouldn't be done right away. Is that right? That's right. The other stuff would be fixed first. So it's only if there's sufficient funds to do all of it that it'll happen. Is that right? He says that's his opinion, his vote. And on the west side, do you know the answer on why not just fix the bathrooms and move on the bathroom part of it, instead of building the other big buildings?
Again, I think it all depends on the final analysis of what the condition of that building is. It's my understanding that the previous board decided not to go ahead with the redoing of those facilities because the recommendation that had come from the Facilities Improvement Committee was to substantially expand the women's facility. That led into some really complex approval issues as far as the city was concerned and as far as accessibility requirements were concerned. And so the board put a halt to that in December of 2012. I think once we know or think we know what the future of that building is, that we can revisit the issue of simply cleaning up what I feel are not satisfactory of men's and women's locker rooms there. But I doubt that that would include the kind of expansion that was considered before.
Thank you.
I had a question pertaining to this because I can't remember the answer. We are limited to improving that building to a certain monetary figure. Does anybody know what that is? Without going through permit processes.
It's not limited. The new building was going to be close to...
No. West.
On the west, that pool, whatever they're calling it, the bathrooms out there, we're going to be close to $700,000 to build that building. Is that what you're talking about?
I was talking about the west building that exists now. We are limited, I think, we We can't build a new building because
of the
in that
street
site,
setbacks.
because we're in the riparian
Right.
rights area. So we are limited to putting a certain amount of money into that building without going over what this amount is. Does anybody know what it is? There is a limit.
The limit depends on what you're doing. As an example, one of the observations from the forensic analysis was that the heating and ventilation system at the West was residential quality and needed to really be upgraded, and that the amount that that might take, I don't remember the numbers from the study, but let's say it was $400,000. We could do all of that without any impact on any regulations. All we're doing is repairing the existing. The same thing would be true of the electrical system. The same one would be true of repairing the bolting and the strapping and the bracing that was found as a structural inequity. The kind of numbers that you're talking about would refer to major remodeling and reforming the building.
I just had one quick question.
Thanks, John. Yes.
If I could divert, it'll just be a second. You've designed the office building here so that the wing is on the left side, which blocks the view and interrupts what could be continuous landscaping. Why can't you just flip that wing over to here so that you don't block the beautiful architectural job that you did on the CAC and make it look more unified instead of chopped off? That's my way.
Do you have any idea why they put the meeting room wing on the side they did? Do you want it to be a part of? The architect was trying to make the new building and the burger cohesive instead of the fitness center and the new building be cohesive. You can't fix it both ways. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying? Your best understanding? There's a bigger territory because you've got the plaza out here, and so you'd be incorporating that now, the way it is, along with the open space that's in the L of the new building. If you cut it off, you'd have plaza here chopped with the building and then more open space. It's just an architectural landscaping combination design.
But the CAC has the glass and a view. The Burger Center doesn't. It doesn't have, it just has doors there. So it doesn't matter if that wing, it wouldn't matter if the wing was over here. It wouldn't really block anything from the Burger Center. It would be much better.
I'm not the one that designed it, so. And then just to move quickly on to the Easter egg, because time is flying. At this point, no, the West Truck, I didn't have any particular more questions there. I had one other comment, though. Why not just build the new cabana if it's really in terrible condition for the pool equipment and the cabana instead of building a whole big fancy bathroom thing out there? But that's all going to depend upon what reports show. So there's no point in speculating on that at this point. John Felton, can you tell us what's happening now on the bathroom in the East Rec? What status, where they are? And when do you think it'll be done?
Where we are today is let me start at the beginning very briefly. We found rot behind the walls in the women's and men's locker rooms in the east. At that time, we went through, and it was I understand it's a long process and hard to accept how long it's taken, but we had to go to certified laboratories and have it tested. We had to go to a certified contractor to have it cleaned up. We had to go back to a certified lab again, went through all the bidding process and all those things that have to be done. At that point, when they were finished, we selected an architect, Glass Architects in Santa Rosa. They came out and a couple times and made measurements and looked, and they had a contract. the particular architect who was working on the project was off for a week on vacation. He's back at work. One of the things they discovered was that the air conditioning or the air exchange equipment that serves both of those is really goofy. Somebody, some time ago, we don't know when, put in some strange ducts with fans that go the wrong way. In the wintertime, it blows cold air in when you're trying to warm it up. Anyway, they're at the stage right now is that they're looking at what, if anything, has to be done to correct that. And I want to assure you that we're moving ahead as quickly as possible. For example, we don't want to just take one thing one step at a time, wait for this to happen, and start the next step. If we get an advantage of moving ahead on things that we can, we do. For example, that tile that was torn out, we don't want to put in some crummy looking mess to replace it. We wanted to have it match and look right. And we found out who the manufacturer was. We found out they will do a custom match for us. It'll look great. The price is right, but the lead time was long. It's going to take 6 to 8 weeks. We don't want to add that on top of everything else. So we made the decision to go ahead and order the tile so that it will come in on time when the contractor starts. The other thing I've done, I did not want to wait. Incidentally, I'm I was appointed to be the coordinator for this project. The other thing that we've done, that I took upon myself, is I got the name of a number of different contractors and called them ahead of time and said, this is a project we have coming up here in Oakmont. We've got cost considerations, we have timing considerations, we don't have our drawings yet, we're waiting for them. Would you be interested in taking on this job and having a chance to bid on it? And through that process, some people said, yeah, we'd love to, but we're booked out for 3 months. I crossed them off the list. Other people that came in at one time maybe didn't do a very good job for us. We didn't go back and consider them again. So we've put in place a list of people that we're already planned to go to as soon as we get the drawings, and we're moving ahead as quickly as we can.
So do you have any idea when it might be done? A vague idea?
Boy, that's a tough...
Eye in the sky?
Yes.
Pull it out of the air?
Well...
3 months? 3 weeks? 3 years?
Less than 3 months.
Less than 3 months? Okay.
Yeah, less than 3 months.
Okay, thanks.
Incidentally, one other thing, I spoke with people that use the pool on a regular basis, and the complaint was, I hate going home in a wet swimsuit, and it's getting cooler, what are you going to do?
So you fixed that too?
Pardon me?
I said, so you fixed that too, with 2 changing rooms?
We took that, we got 2 change rooms in there. So that's it.
Okay, the last thing to cover tonight, thank you. The last thing to cover is the plaza out here and the landscaping stuff. They still don't have the permit. Can you believe it? For the concrete? It's been forever that the city's been diddling around. And so they're still waiting for the permit, according to the landscape committee. I did have one question. Does it make any sense to do landscaping and all this stuff when they're going to be making trenches to put it through for the moving electric stuff? Is it going to impact anything? Well, they have to change it. I don't know where it's going to go, where the trench is going to go. Yeah, we're going to go back here. Is it going to impact anything in relation to the plaza?
No.
Okay, so that's not a problem. Okay, one last question. How come the Rosemary's still out there in the median? Because why? Does anybody know? Nobody knows. But weren't we going to be taking it out?
I have a different question. Why is it being removed?
Because there were good reasons for that.
Water issue.
Oh? Okay, well, I thought it made sense to me. The city cut off the water to it for one thing because it was using so much water. But I think people are drifting out of here. I think we've all had about enough.
Okay. I can tell you that rosemary is one of the lower water use plants around. The trees are the ones that you should be worried about with the water.
But when you add the rosemary to the trees, I guess it used a lot of water. I don't know. I'm not in the landscaping committee.
Some of us here in the audience really want to express our appreciation for putting this together.
I want to say how absolutely astounded I was to have so many of you walk in the door. I had no idea whether we were going to have a dozen people or 20 people, or as Bob Giddings, he was flabbergasted. He didn't expect that. So I want to thank you all so much for coming. And this
We only set up 100 chairs and
Yeah,
had over
even more.
150 people.
the video will
Thank
be
you for attending.
the video will be posted on the website as soon as they can get up there. So you can pass the word to anybody who couldn't come or didn't come or whatever. But thank you all for coming.